In this video, I'm hopefully going to bring you 5 tips, tricks, theories, ideas, whatever you want to call them, for helping you learning songs on the drums by ear. Before we begin, a few disclaimers that I just want to throw out there. So first and foremost, what do I mean by ear? I of course mean no sheet music whatsoever. So all you're doing is listening to a song, breaking down what the drummer's doing, and then playing it on your kit. Disclaimer number 2, this is not a foolproof fail-safe method, so if not all of these tips work for you, I'm sorry, but they're just a collection of ideas that I've come up with over my drumming journey. I've imparted most of them on my students, and also just, drumming colleagues, people I've met at conventions and whatnot, and generally they've been well received and people say that they're good ideas for those who don't want or can't read sheet music. And the final thing I want to say before I get into the main bulk of the video is that not all of this will apply to all drummers. I want you to take into account your own skill level while I'm going through these tips. Not all of them will apply, as I say, to everyone, and there are also some caveats where you don't necessarily need to do exactly, you don't need to do what I'm saying at all, but you don't need to take on board everything I'm saying if it doesn't apply to you, and hopefully I will make that clear as the video goes on. So with that out of the way, let's get into the tips. So the first piece of advice I can give you for learning a song by ear is to not play the song straight away. Now, I've seen too many times people will hear a song for the first time, they'll go and sit down at their kit and they'll realise, I can't do any of this unless it's, like an AC/DC song or whatever. These things will take time. And I've realised that as I've said that, Drumeo have recently uploaded 2 videos with, I think, Larnell Lewis and Gil Sharon, where they've listened to a song once and then played them perfectly. But let's face it, we're not all as good as Gil Sharon and Larnell Lewis. So the majority of times you listen to a song, you're not going to be able to just go and play it straight away. It's not how our brains work. So I'll go into a bit more detail on that. There's a chance you've heard the expression that it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert on something, and while that is absolute nonsense, there is some truth in it, because the way that the majority of human brains work is we absorb information and we get better at things over time. So you can look at learning a song by ear in the same way that you can look at actually just learning the drums. What I mean by that is you'll notice as you progress through the years of your drumming journey that you will inevitably get better at things the more you practice and the more your body gets used to what you're trying to do. And learning by ear is no different. The more times you listen to a song, the more nuance you pick up, the more of the song structure you learn. And on that note, don't just listen to a song for the drums, listen to it as a performance piece, and then the more you get used to the song, then you can start to isolate the drums during your listening experience and you'll start to pick up more and more of what's going on. What I have seen too often is people rush to the kit to try and play a new song they've just heard, and all they'll end up doing is getting frustrated because they haven't taken the time to not only learn what's going on with the drums, but they don't know the song structure. So even if you think you have a good idea of what's coming next, because of the way our brains work, you probably don't. And what I'm saying here is don't binge a song, listen to it 10 times and then go and play it, because you'll probably find the results are exactly the same as if you only listened to it once and then went to play it. The best thing to do is to give yourself a few days to absorb the song, work out what's going on where, learn the song structure as I say, and then when you sit down at the kit you'll find that you've got more of a grasp of how to actually play. If you rush these things, you just get frustrated. Point number 2, I'm going to use a visual metaphor here in the form of a maths equation, or math equation for my American friends. So take a look at this. It's pretty daunting, right? It's pretty horrible. I couldn't attempt to do that in my wildest dreams. However, if I replace this whole mess with just this tiny little bit, somehow it seems a little bit more manageable, right? And learning a song, and this is not just by ear, to be honest, this is also if you read sheet music, but anyway, learning a song by ear is no different to this maths problem. If you break it down into much more digestible and easy to understand chunks, then you'll learn it a lot faster. If you just approach it head on and say, I'm going to play this entire song, this 4-minute song back to front with, no mistakes, I barely know it, I'm just going to power my way through, then it'll sound bad, and like I said a minute ago, you'll probably get frustrated. So while you're listening to the song, isolate different parts. Generally, songs will have a very similar verse structure throughout the song. The choruses generally sound the same as well. So it is just a matter of putting these building blocks and the equation, if you like, back together. However, it's really beneficial to isolate different parts of the song, like the equation, and then put it all together once you've cracked each section. Tip number 3, and this is where your differing skill levels for all of you watching this will kind of come into play the most, and that is slow the song down. I feel like there are two main ways of doing this. The first one, which is the one that I would probably recommend, is on YouTube. You can just watch, the official video or whatever anyone's uploaded of a song and just change the playback speed to times 0.75 or 0.5, whatever, and that will just slow down the song for you. Alternatively, you can do some things with Audacity that I'm not recommending you can do, but it's quite easy if you just Google it. And then within Audacity, you can adjust the tempo and the speed of the song and listen to it that way. So now you've got your slowed down song, you can start to attempt to tackle the song at a much easier pace. And again, I mentioned this a second ago, depending on your skill level depends on how much you actually need to do this. So if you're a pretty accomplished drummer who plays, songs at 120, no problem, then the chances are you probably won't need to do this step. However, if you're still a beginner or intermediate who struggles with slightly higher tempos, then it's really beneficial to just knock 20 BPM off of something, add 5 on as you're going, and then eventually you'll be up to speed with the recorded track. For example, the song Immigrant Song by the band Led Zeppelin is at 112 BPM, which is a really good banana peel BPM, by which I mean it's easy when you think it's easy when you listen to it, but when you actually go to play it, it's not fast, but it's not slow. It's one of those mid-tempos that can actually be quite difficult to deal with, especially if you're more used to playing at a certain speed register. When you go for these like mid 112, anywhere between kind of 100 and 115 tempo songs, they can be really tricky because you're just not used to it. So even if you are a great drummer, you can blast out Nile songs at record tempo, it still might be beneficial for you to slow things down a bit and gradually build back up again. Tip number 4, and this is where YouTube gets involved, and also where me and my channel and the reason that I started doing these videos gets involved, and that is because YouTube is an excellent resource for learning songs without needing sheet music. There are a ton of educators on YouTube who will give you free transcriptions for songs, which is great. But what if you don't want them? That's when you turn to playthroughs and covers. So I have mentioned this loads on my channel, but I learned the majority of my drumming through watching covers, which is not the ideal method, as I've said hundreds of times before. However, it kind of worked for me, and here I am. And anyway, the point I'm trying to make is if you're really struggling to just pick up on a certain part of a song, then watching a drum cover can be a great way of working out what's going on, because someone is literally showing you how to do that exact part of the song. And 9 times out of 10, if you search up something on YouTube, you'll find a really well-made, well-produced drum cover of something, or playthrough from the original performer if you get really lucky, and then there you go. There's your source material right there. And finally, tip or theory number 5 is linking into what I said earlier about breaking the song down into those maths equation chunks, and that is when you go to practice the song, practice the parts that you're struggling with. Let's say you only practice for half an hour a day because drums are very loud and the song you're learning is 5 minutes long. If you listen to the whole thing and play the whole thing every single time, you're only going to get 6 playthroughs in a perfect practice session, which isn't ideal when you're trying to learn a song. 6 isn't going to be enough, especially if you're struggling with just one section of the song, because what will probably happen is you'll mess up the first time, and then every subsequent time you try and play that bit, it will be in the back of your mind the whole way through. You're cruising for the rest of the song. You're just, yeah, this bit's not a problem at all, and then you're thinking, oh my god, the 16th note triplet fill out of the chorus is coming, oh my god, here it comes, and you've messed it up again. Isolate that part. Repeat until you are comfortable with it, and then go for full playthroughs. Otherwise you're just wasting your own practice session. Once you're comfortable with the isolated parts that you found the most difficult, it could be any part of the song, doesn't really matter, just isolate it, get it to the point where you're comfortable, then you can start doing full song playthroughs. Otherwise I think you're just wasting your own precious practice time by repeating things that you're already comfortable with when really you should be focusing on your weaknesses. Some people might not agree with that. They might think it's a good thing to kind of push through that barrier of the mental block of I can't do that bit, and then play the whole song, and when you get to it try and fight through it. But I don't know, each to their own. Maybe you think that's better, maybe you think my idea, or it's not my idea, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. The idea I'm presenting you today, which is to isolate the parts you find difficult and then eventually play the song as a whole. Either way, there's no right or wrong answer here, it's just my advice. So that's going to be it for the video. A little bit shorter than I imagined it would be, but to be honest, it's all theory, so it's just a case of me speaking out loud to you. But let me know in the comments how you learn songs by ear. If you like any of these tips, if you think any of them are complete nonsense, then by all means let me know and we can have a nice adult civilized discussion in the comment section, because comment sections are always full of adult civilized discussions. With that being said, thanks very much for watching. I hope you found this educational or helpful in some way, and don't worry, the reactions will be coming soon. Thanks very much. These are just a few, as I say, tips, tricks that I've picked up over my